Slave Graves by Thomas Holliday. Reading 1-3. He breathed hard, straining against the heat as though it would finally overcome him and slap him backwards. He climbed the large wooden steps up to the white porch of the hotel. Boom! The noise arced and rumbled above the clatter of the street. He instinctively fell on the plank floor of the porch, pushing his body flat, making his hands grasp for protection from the pine planks. Then he stopped, looked up, and remembered where he was. Whatever this noise was, it was not war. Incoming mortars in Vietnam for a long time ago in his life. A black doorman in a red uniform standing over him reached down a hand. "I did that when I first came home from Nam." The porter grinned. Two tourist women looked on, amused. Frank took the man's hand and stood. Momentarily embarrassed, he composed himself by looking out from the porch at the view of the River Sunday harbor. He could see a great number of pleasure boats, sail and power, anchored or sailing out to the Chesapeake Bay in the distance. In the middle of the harbor, a huge pile of what appeared to Frank to be large building stones rose 50 feet above the water. They were stacked haphazardly, as if a giant had thrown them there in disgust. A navigation beacon blinked on top of the rocks. Anchored nearby, and surrounded by small fishing boats, was a very large and modern white yacht, far grander than any other craft in the harbor. He turned and nodded at the doorman, gave him a thumbs up, and walked into the lobby. His eyes adjusted to the darkness after the blinding sunlight outside. In the center of the room, next to a large sign advertising a private Termit Company luncheon, he recognized Jake Termit from seeing him on television. Termit was a tanned, 50-year-old man, a few years older than Frank. Frank thought he looked a little taller than he appeared on television. The man stood like a patrician, like a god. Around Termit was a crowd of more than 100 people, mostly white, but with a few blacks and Hispanics. Some were pushing to get closer to his side and shake his hand. The activity reminded Frank of fundraiser meetings back at the university, where he had been like these people, trying to promote archaeology to wealthy, middle-aged alumni in rumpled business suits. Termit looked up from his conversation and saw Frank. He started towards Frank with the confident smile of a man who had complete control of his environment and all the people in it. The crowd parted, some of the people still following him. The room became very quiet as Termit's attention focused on Frank. In an adjoining room, Frank could hear the luncheon preparations, dishes being placed on tables, with voices of waitresses providing a pleasant background rhythm. "You must be Dr. Frank Light," Jake Termit spoke in a drawl. "I'm afraid I expected an old man with a white beard." He smiled, glancing at Frank's stylish suit. "I think I recognize a man like myself."